Thank you very much. It's quite a powerful position being the last presenter of the day when everybody's probably keen to go off and do their afternoon's work potentially, or start their evening. But slight change in topic for my session today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about decentralized clinical trials and what the MRN do around that approach to delivering patients into clinical trials. As you just heard, I've been with the organisation since it was founded 14 years ago. I've been in the clinical trials industry for about 25 years. I've worked in multiple CRO and pharma companies. So I've been on the other side. I've been in a situation where I've had to deliver patients, recruit large numbers of patients across the globe into clinical trials. I understand the challenges of doing that, and I think the way that MRN has approached this decentralized model and how we're changing the way that clinical trials are delivered, I think is really important in moving things forward. And I think we've seen a lot of changes this year, specifically, which I'll touch on as I go through this presentation. So just a little bit about MRN. We were established 14 years ago, 2006. Initially, we were a UK-based organisation. We've expanded significantly over the last few years. We're up at about 40 plus countries coverage now. We have offices in the UK, the US, Germany, and Spain. We consider ourselves to be the market leader in the sector. We've delivered over 45,000 visits in total since we were starting, and actually we're seeing our visit volume increase now. We are delivering well over 800 visits per month, and we see that to continue to grow as the focus on these types of decentralized models that are growing. We put, as well as offering these nursing services to go out and see patients in the home, we also put nurses on site to see patients. So again, everything is focused on getting patients into the study and keeping patients on the study. And improving the patient's level of care. Decentralized trials. What the aim of a decentralized trial is to revolve everything around the patient. So in the traditional trial model, you would set up a clinical trial site. You set up a number of hospitals. You set them up around the physicians that had those patients, and the patients and all of the other infrastructure would come into that hospital unit, which is a very sort of hospital medical centric approach. For the patient, that means that they could be traveling large distances with all of the challenges that come with that and the expense that comes with that, and the waiting around. And we take that away from the patients. We don't take necessarily every hospital visit away for the patient, because they would still be enrolled in the trial. They would be screened. They would be baselined and consented, most likely within a hospital environment by the medic. But as they come out into that clinical trial, we can take a large number of those visits and do them out in the home environment. The virtual trial models came about I don't know, 8-10 years ago, and they were very technology focused. And I think you need to bring the two together to deliver something that works for the patient. Technology is obviously really important. It is progressing at a very high rate, and we are certainly adopting more technology in our service to deliver more types of assessment in the home, but patients really need to be looked after, to have that hands-on care. So if we revolve everything around the patient, you give the patient a choice. So the patient may want to have the visit done in the home, and therefore the nurse, the IMP, the blood sampling, everything can be delivered to the patient's home, so that visit can be conducted there. And it may be that you do every other visit, so that there's still medical oversight. It may be that you do 2 or 3 visits in a row, and then they have to go back to the site. But it's all put together around what we can deliver and what's defined by the protocol and what the patient wants. So they may not want every one of those visits. They may opt to have some of them. They may opt to go into the site early part of the trial and come into the home later on. They may jump at the chance of being able to see have all of their visits done at home. But ultimately, it's about giving them the choice and making the study easier for them to participate in. The human interaction between a nurse and a patient is really important. That's what keeps the patients on study. They can build a good relationship. They feel like they're being cared for. They may be entering some data into a technology platform, but ultimately the human relationship and the quality of care is important. And it makes participation in trials easier. It makes staying on the trials easier, and it's generally beneficial. Now, if you start to look at different types of patient population, you see kind of different levels of impact that you can have on a clinical trial. So if you're looking at rare diseases where patients are being seen at tertiary referral sites, where they're traveling very long distances to see key opinion leaders, suddenly that home option becomes very powerful, because they get convenient care. They don't have to travel. And that travel could be excessive. It could be that they're pediatric patients and they're missing school and the parents are missing work, and that becomes very complex, and they're not going to participate, and therefore they don't get the treatments, the new medicines that are coming through the process. The clinical trial sites, they obviously have something better to offer to the patient, so the clinical trial suddenly becomes more appealing to them because they can be offered a new treatment without all the burden of having to come into the hospital every 2 weeks or whatever the protocol is demanding. They'll be able to deliver better. Patients will want to do it. They can also recruit from further away because the patient travel is suddenly less of a problem, and the patients are more likely to stay on because they're going to enjoy the experience. And obviously, for all the sponsors and CROs that are bringing these products to market, they get the benefit of getting better data because the patients are on the study, getting the studies delivered faster so they can get the products to market faster and the treatments to market faster. And actually, when you look at some of the stats which are listed on here, 85% of all clinical trials fail to recruit enough patients. And clinical trials are getting generally harder. 80% are delayed due to recruitment problems. 65% global decrease year on year in new patient enrollment figures. This is driven by patients becoming more demanding. Patients are more aware of what's going on. They're more aware of the treatments. They can look online. They can see what they want to do, what they don't want to do. If they try something and it doesn't work for them, they can drop out and try something else. Clinical research gets a bad press in many places, so it becomes less appealing. So I think if we need to turn it around and make it something that they want to participate in and that is easy to participate in, and that they're getting the education and the care that they want, then they're more likely to want to do that. Setting up sites is expensive. It takes a long time, and quite often you'll end up with huge numbers of countries and sites on any given clinical trial, all delivering very few patient numbers, which it isn't ideal for your cost, for your timelines, and for your budget. And doesn't give very good data. So if we can improve all of those things, you'll get much better clinical trials delivered a lot quicker with much better quality data. And actually, 53.5% of clinical trials have been suspended. That's a 2020 fact. There's no prizes for guessing why that's happened. We're in the middle of this pandemic right now. A lot of clinical trials have stopped recruiting because hospital sites are no longer seeing the patients, or they've shut down to any patients apart from the COVID ones, or the patients don't want to come back into the sites. There's many factors have slowed clinical trials right down. But actually, within with what we do, we've seen a huge demand of increased requests come through the system because the sponsors are looking to move their patients out of site and into the home environment on these decentralized models. I said earlier we've done over 45,000 visits in the home since we started 14 years ago. So that's well in excess of 150 clinical trials, 184 plus on that on list there across 70 indications. There probably is no indication you couldn't offer some level of visit in the home to the patient. I think when I get asked what is the ideal indication or patient type for decentralized models and home visits, it's very hard to answer. I think as I said, the rare disease patients that travel a long distance are ideal. Pediatrics are ideal. We do a lot of pediatric work for exactly that reason. Parents don't want to take the children into the hospitals. We don't want to pull them out of school. They don't want to take time off work. So it works very nicely in the home. It's less traumatic for the children, etc. Patients that have mobility issues, the elderly, they're all ideal for this type of approach. The flip side with the elderly is that going to the hospital maybe the only time they venture out, and the clinical trial is a way of them being out and meeting new people. So it doesn't. It's got to be down to patient choice. It doesn't work for everyone. Our work is probably split about 50, or has been split about 50-50, I'd say, between what are simple blood draws being done in the home at a particular visit. So it may just be that it's vital signs, a safety blood draw, and some other nursing available assessments. So it has to be things that a nurse can do, and using equipment that a nurse can carry that allows the visit to happen. And about 50% of our work is drug administration, so infusions, injections, and that those types of visits also involve a logistical element where we'll be using couriers to take cold chain medications out of a hospital pharmacy or a central pharmacy out to the patient's home to liaise with the nurse at the point they're going to do the visit. So it becomes a lot more complex. As I said, it was probably, if you look back across the history, it's about 50-50 the types of visits we do. Most recently, we're doing a lot more IMP, and that's coming into this year. And I think that's new projects or new patients being referred as a result of the pandemic impact, where they want to continue getting patients treated. So there's been certainly an influx of new patients, or patients we're already seeing where the visits that would normally be done at site are getting relocated into the home because the sites can't take the patients and they need to continue being treated. Looking at a little bit more at experience, this breaks down into the types of therapy area that we've been involved in, which is, again, I say, it's quite diverse, and that just gives you a good overview. Specifically looking at metabolic type diseases, there's quite a range of these. We've done a lot of Gaucher's, a lot of Fabry's disease. We've done a lot of RA type work. And a number of infectious disease trials listed here. These types of patient populations are well suited to these to this approach. Certainly, if they're getting very regular IMP treatment, and there may be the weekly injections. We'd have patients that stay on these types of studies with weekly treatments for years. And they would never be able to sustain doing that if they were traveling into the sites and the distances they had to travel to the site, certainly if they have mobility issues as well, and the pediatric population. So these indications really do lend themselves very well to this approach, and I think this approach works very well for these types of patients. Just a case study here, just to really reiterate the power in adopting a home visit approach, because the patients are going to want to participate and they are going to want to stay in the study. And this was a big neurology study. It is a rare indication, but it was a big project spanning 12 countries. It was planned to enroll over 9 months. Actually, enrollment was delivered in 6 months. And actually, the enrollment overshot because the patients were coming in so quickly. We were seeing the patients in every other visit in the home, so they were monthly visits. They were on study for a sort of 12 to 18 month period, so they would have done 18 months the earlier on and 12 months as the patients enrolled, just to the protocol design. But the speed up in recruitment was 33%, and actually we maintained 96% of the patients. And again, a lot of those patients that were enrolled and getting into the home service were also started to have some of their site visits done in the home at the point that they wanted to drop out. I mean, the whole thing was built around a package of keeping patients in the project, because they weren't going to get any better. They may not have got any worse, and that was one of the endpoints is the disease deterioration. But for the patients, they would expect to be getting better, and that's not what they were going to see. So they were trying to mitigate the patients dropping out of the study. So to sum up, the decentralized trial models really is the future of clinical trial design. I think for 14 years we've been saying that. 14 years ago it wasn't mainstream, and we were really trying to carve out a completely new niche. We were as a board of the organization, we were very well connected, having been in the industry for a long time, with pharma and CRO contacts. But it was a real educational moment of trying to talk to people about how can we do this work differently, and when you fast forward to today, there's a lot of talk about patient-centric trials, decentralized trials, virtual models. How we can get out there and take the trial to the patient is becoming much more commonplace. Technology sitting alongside that, so the telehealth platforms and the wearables and all those other things are absolutely driving this forward at a higher rate as well. We're looking into working with those types of solutions to widen the net of what we can actually deliver. Site models are failing even more, certainly as this year goes on, and who knows what's going to happen as we go into next year with site lockdowns. The site models are failing and will continue to fail. We need to give patients the choice, because the world we live in today, the world we're used to living in, with all of the technology that we use day to day, whether it's buying our shopping, groceries, booking appointments, we expect to be able to do everything online. We expect to be educated, and we know what we're doing, and we have the power to investigate that, and we need to play to that with the patients. We need to deliver. We'd start delivering studies on time. I think the whole sector, the whole industry has been very accepting of delays for many years, and I think we need to start looking at things differently and try to push things to deliver at the point in time that they should deliver. And we should try and stop failing and do things better. So that's it for the presentation. I'm happy to open up for questions